Recently, I made several videos about the Dutch defense as black, and you guys absolutely love them. So today I'll show you a similar setup, but this time as white. It's probably one of the most underrated chess openings. It's simple, aggressive, and much stronger than its reputation. Let me show you quickly the setup. Here you play pawn to f4, controlling this square. Therefore, your opponents typically won't play the usual move pawn to e5, but instead will opt for pawn to d5. Either they'll play right away or several moves down the line, doesn't really matter. Your setup is always the same. You continue with your development. They'll usually play knight c6 again or anything else really. You play pawn e3, opening up your bishop. They'll typically pin your knight, but you don't care about that. There's no danger there at all. And you do a similar thing to them. You pin their knight. Also, getting ready to castle. If your opponent ever wants to get rid of this pin and attacks your bishop, the easiest solution is just to trade it off. You will also double his pawns, creating these weaknesses, which is useful for you. You will be able to attack them down the line. There is also another interesting moment here. While trading off or pinning this knight on c6, either way, you neutralize it, even though I can't draw this line. Yeah, there we go. In the future, that secures this e5 square for your own knight. That is why it's so good to take away this knight off c6. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Then, another important move that you play here, part of your setup, is pawn to b3. Your dark squared bishop is clearly obstructed across this diagonal, and therefore you want to develop it that way. Now it controls this long diagonal and is very active. It will also target your opponent's king once it castles kingside. Then your opponent continues his development, you do the same, and another important nuance here is when you want to develop this knight, do not bring it here, because that will block your own bishop, and you do not want that. Instead, you move this pawn to d3 first, and then, after your opponent castles, develop the knight to d2. And you have a really nice and very harmonious setup, where your bishop is still very active, you have this square for your knight down the line, and you're also covering everything. Your opponent can't easily come forward in any way and attack you. Now, what is your middle game plan? Well, it's pretty standard. You're gonna attack his king and hopefully checkmate it. Another little detail, if your opponent ever tries to push here on the queen side and disturb your bishop or whatever, just block it, right? It's a very simple solution. Also, in the long run, this pawn on a5 is weak. Potentially, in the future, if you want, you can try attacking it, but that's not really your plan. Here, the most played move by black, I believe, is c5, just trying to control the center. And now here is your middle game plan. You play queen e1. This subtle move is actually absolutely brilliant. It pursues a couple ideas. Your queen is getting ready to be brought up to the kingside to take part in your kingside attack. Together with your bishop, that actually is very annoying for your opponent. Plus, you sidestep this pin, making it possible for your knight to jump forward. And here rook b8 is what your opponents play. According to the database, now knight can finally jump to e5. An excellent outpost, really strong, putting pressure all around, and right now, kinda putting pressure to this bishop. In most cases, they will retreat the bishop here or here, overlooking this fork. And now this move would already win material for you, which is already great, and it's definitely a good move to play. But there is another move which is even stronger, and it's also a very common breakthrough. It's the move pawn to e4. This move allows you to keep expanding in the center and kingside area where you want to attack. Here it's great because you also hit his bishop, and therefore you're also gaining one more tempo. Let's say black trades. Now the bishop is still attacked, it goes back. Now you can keep pushing with this time with the pawn to f5. You keep expanding, keep gaining more space, keep attacking. Now this rook is taking part into the game. And of course, specific moves could be different, but I'm showing you the plan, and the plan will always be the same. Now after an exchange, the bishop is pushed away to h5 to the side of the board where it's kind of in danger already, and now you can finally land your knight here on c6 with this multiple devastating fork, attacking the queen as well. Then you grab the bishop with a check. The king has to move. Notice that your knight is guarded. He can't take it, therefore the king has to move. And here you can even play queen e5, where your opponent thinks, wait a second, he is blundering this knight, right? Let me capture it. But we're about to put his ego in check. Sacrifice the queen and checkmate him. Of course, the question you may have is, Igor, what if my opponent doesn't follow the script and plays something totally different? Well, with the birds opening, the sky's the limit. But more seriously, that's why I'm showing you these common attacking ideas. They are universal. Let's say in this case, black played c5 instead. Again, very common for your opponents to do that. What do you do here? Still the same idea, there is this pin which does not allow your knight to jump forward to e5, which is what you want to. Therefore we sidestep the pin, getting ready to play knight e5 on the next move. Black played a5. Again, similar idea. Now, in the previous example, we discussed that you can always block it by pushing your own pawn forward. But in this game, White realized that his attack is already so strong that you don't even have to worry about his little counter idea on the other side of the board. Now we go knight e5, putting pressure to the bishop. Our queen is ready to join the party. Black retreated the bishop, now queen to g3, putting our queen opposite to his king. Black continued with a4, trying to do something on the queen side. And this time knight to c6 was still played. Now here the idea is slightly different. There is no rook on b8 right here, and therefore you do not win anything right there. But knight c6 is still strong because thanks to this double attack you can take away this bishop. And while there is no material advantage for you here, now your own dark squared bishop without a counterpart is even stronger because your opponent has nothing to oppose, so his defense got weaker. Now you still have this central break with a pawn to e4. Initially it looks like you're just miscalculated here because black's got two attackers, but good things come to those who bait. If black captures a pawn, he'll be checkmated. That's nice. Now, instead, if the bishop retreats back, you keep expanding on the king side. We have seen this before. The bishop is attacked. By the way, this bishop often gets in trouble here on the side of the board because it can't really retreat anymore. And sometimes you just attack this bishop and try to even capture it. But in this case, White play rook e1, attacking the queen. The queen has to also guard the knight. We see that your pressure keeps increasing. And then on the next turn, knight e4 totally overloads black. Now the knight is attacked. You have all your pieces taking part into this storm. And then there's queen takes g7. Boom. Very easy for your opponent to overlook this sniper bishop sitting here in an ambush. Now let me also address a couple other common questions. What if your opponent plays pawn to c5 here? The beauty of the bird's opening is, even if you've been partying all night long and you forgot all opening theory at all, the bird's opening will save the day for you because it's the same setup. We continue playing pawn to e3 and then our usual stuff. If black ever goes knight c6, we immediately pin it with bishop to b5. We want to develop the bishop there and we just wait for the knight to show up on c6. Another question, what if he doesn't play knight to c6? What if he develops this knight instead? Then we just wait a little bit. We have another useful thing to do, to fianchetto our bishop to b2 to this long diagonal. You do that, and usually during this time, sooner or later, your opponent will play knight to c6. By the way, what if he never plays this move at all? You will just play bishop b5, checking his king. Alright, that's still fine. But even better if we can wait till the knight shows up there, and then bishop b5 pins the knight, which is a bit annoying for your opponent. If he goes bishop d7, do not take this knight yourself, because usually your opponent will waste time in the future pushing you into the right direction. So for now, just wait, stick to your plan, continue with bishop b2 development, then you castle, then you develop your queenside knight as usual. Sooner or later, your opponent will typically play pawn to a6 because your opponent doesn't know your plan. Right? I mean, it all seems easy, when you're watching this video and I'm explaining all that. Your opponent has no idea about the bird's opening. Could be that it's the first time in his life he's playing against it, right? So a6 seemed perfectly natural, but in reality, you do want to take away this knight from c6 so that it no longer controls the square and you can land your own knight there. That's the point. Therefore, you trade off this knight, you land your own knight on e5. Now I've got this great outpost, very strong knight, controlling a whole lot of squares all around, very annoying for your opponent. Right now, he may also feel like maybe you want to take here and double his pawn chain. I mean, it's an idea, potentially. And often they'll play something like queen to c7. But the bigger issue for black is, typically, they have no idea what to do. You have a clear attacking plan that you know to attack the king, right? Using the power of this bishop. But for your opponent, I mean, it's a general problem, not only in this position, but in general. People have a very hard time coming up with middle game plans, what to do after an opening. Right? So your opponents will typically do something like this, without that much purpose, and you'll crush them easily. By the way, if you want to learn how to come up with middle game plans, I've got a free masterclass about that. I'll link it down below. You can watch it after this video. But back to the bird's opening. In the past, we have discovered this maneuver of the queen. And certainly you could use it here as well, but here you don't even need to wait, right? Your queen can move in that direction right away without any preparations. Similarly, you can use the rook lift with the same purpose. You can add more pieces to that kingside attack. Rook f3 followed by rook g3 or h3. Another very common mistake that lots of your opponents will play is playing knight to d7. It's the move that seemed to make perfect sense. Your knight is very strong on e5 and black wants to trade it off or kick it back. again, seem like it makes a lot of sense, but in reality, it's a very bad mistake usually because it eliminates the main defender of black's king. That knight used to be here in f6 securing some squares around, but now the king is absolutely lonely against white's army. And on the next turn, you're about to bring your queen somewhere here or here, adding even more firepower to your attack, and basically black is done. Moreover, if he trades on e5, and again, if not, basically it's going to be bad for him anyway, and if black trades here on e5, what he often misunderstands is that there's this powerful dark squares bishop. And then you can just continue attacking, and here you can checkmate in different ways. For example, you can sack the rook if you want to be fancy and finish the game this way. Here are a couple other questions you may have. Sometimes when I show these to students, they ask me, Igor, but if your kingside attack is so strong, what if your opponent castles queenside instead? And the answer is, your opponents don't know what's going to happen 20 moves down the line. They have no idea. And it's super rare for your opponents to castle queenside. And even there, I mean, there is no danger for you anyway. Now, e5 is the way for your opponents to try to dismantle the bird's opening. But you're happy, an early bird catches the pawn. However, you still gotta be careful, because black wants to capitalize on weakness of this diagonal. And after an exchange, if you're careless, they can throw the queen out there and checkmate your king. And if you are very cooperative, then there can be something like this. Queen g5, and if you try to hit the queen, they can sacrifice it and checkmate you quickly. But of course, you don't have to be that cooperative. In this position, it is better for white to develop a knight, which also simultaneously guards that weak square h4, and then your opponent goes pawn to g5, which initially looks weird because it weakens their kingside and ignores development, but in this particular situation, it is considered the main move. Black is down a pawn, he has just sacrificed it, and he needs to justify it somehow. He needs to be aggressive, he wants to keep pushing forward. And also, mainly, he wants to push this pawn forward, chase away this knight, and still play queen h4, get into your king and winning the game. In this position, the main move theoretically is pawn to g3, which leads to a ton of theory, but I prefer to play it differently. I prefer to go pawn to d4, which usually gets your opponent out of his knowledge because it's a rare move. It also hits this pawn, and it's much trickier, especially in blitz. Your opponent will probably push the pawn forward, attacking the knight, and you now go knight to g5. It's a bit provocative as your opponent may wish to attack the knight, but he keeps ignoring development and he keeps weakening his position. Moreover, sometimes in some of these lines, down the line, you're even okay with sacrificing the knight to totally open up your opponent's king and attack it. But there is no need to do it right away, of course. If your opponent goes pawn h6, and that's what they typically do, your knight retreats back to e4, you don't need to sacrifice it yet. And here's the deal. Your opponent may not realize it, but now queen h4 no longer works. It's their standard idea, but in this case it fails because you've got pawn to g3, attacking the queen, and normally in such positions they sack the bishop right here, checking your king, and normally the justification here is that you can't capture it with a pawn because then your rook is hanging on h1. That's what black usually tries to achieve, but in this case you've got this knight on e4, which is unusual, and now you can just capture the bishop, and it was just a blunder of a bishop for black. Of course, black doesn't have to blunder a bishop, they can retreat, but then it just means that their whole plan failed. Now they're down a pawn with ruined position, ruined kingside, and you have very strong control in the center of the board. You just want to castle with an absolutely stunning position. If he attacks your knight, first of all, it is already guarded by your other minor pieces, so you don't have to worry at all, but you can trade off the bishop and then play bishop f4. I mean, it's just so overwhelmingly great for you. You can castle kingside, putting your rook to this active position. You've got really strong center, ready to go, if the queen just comes back somewhere. And if instead he tries to grab this pawn and offer you an exchange of queens, you say like, I'm okay with that, but on my terms. I will first trade off this knight, and then I'll grab your queen for nothing. And again, if you never want to be confused about your middle game plan, head to this free masterclass. And if you want to know how to use the same setup as black, I'm sure you're going to love this video.